All right, around the SEC on this October 21st, Thursday. Nice of you to join us. I'm here with Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham, and what we're going to do this week is we're going to give you a little bit of time back because there's only 4 SEC games. So we're going to go over the games real quick, do the picks, and get out of here. And it shouldn't be much longer than 45 minutes. How you guys doing?
We are doing good. My team, Hillwood, we've got the Burros. We're 3-0. We won. We were victorious last week over Cheatham County. We won by a score. It was a nail biter. It was 50-7. We're excited to hopefully look to move to 4-0.
And doing pretty well myself, I guess. The weekend of football didn't go the way I wanted. Between being a Vols fan and a Braves fan, it was a rough weekend, but I'm here, so it's okay.
All right. You can follow us at the Stephen Willis or at Old Positively. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/Palmcast. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Positively Ole Miss. And of course, you can join us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. You can catch it on all of the podcatchers as well. Anything you want to preview, Corey?
Well, I've been a little bit here, there, and everywhere as far as where I'm at on the podcast network. I've got my own show. Israel joined us last week. Me and Israel Troop do the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. You can catch our show anywhere you catch your podcasts, and you can find us on social media at Believe in Dogs. The only way to spell dogs, DAWGS. You can find me on my other podcast at Illegal Motion. We do the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. Also, just got picked up on the Believe Network. We cover everything college football, so doesn't matter what conference, and really it doesn't even matter if it's FCS. We'll cover that too. So we're kind of a broad-scoping college football show. And then I made a guest spot on the Believe in Badgers podcast doing a Big Ten preview. So, like I said, I'm all over the place.
All right. Well, I hate to get the show started off on such a negative, but right now you have COVID that is dominating the news, and Florida is currently in a shutdown, and their facility won't even open up until next Monday. And we're in the middle of a resurgence of the virus, which was always going to happen. These things come in waves. But I'm starting to get worried about the cancellations of games moving forward, Corey.
Yeah, it's gonna be very tricky with these, with the weather, especially in the Southeast. I don't know about the other parts of the country, but the weather here is just ebbing and flowing. It's hot, it's cold, it's yes, it's no. A little Katy Perry reference. It's unnerving because you have all the other stuff that goes around in the fall, like strep throat. You have really bad colds and sinus infections, which a lot of the symptoms of those things mimic the COVID. And so I think it's going to be very, very tense around here in the Southeast as far as, mask, no mask, what do we do moving forward? What happens if this thing gets out of control again? Do we do another shutdown? College football, does it stand a chance? I don't know. It is very uncertain all over the place, Steve. And I don't know about other parts of the country, but I mean, I think up in the north, I think in like Minnesota, the Dakotas and stuff, it's already snowing. So, those places are going to get hit hard. The Midwest is getting hit hard right now. And what we also know about this COVID virus is that it goes in waves and it goes in pockets as well. So right now it's in the Midwest pocket. It'll make its way around the country again. And so I think the only thing to do is just stay safe, take care of yourself, wear your mask, be careful, sanitize, wash your hands frequently, and try to limit your trips out. Don't do anything egregious. If you have to go to the store, obviously, if there's things that you do in your normal everyday life, just keep doing those. Just be safe, be careful, and keep your distance as best as you possibly can.
And Jeb, over at Ed, Florida, we talk about them being shut down. Right before they closed everything down for the week, Dan Mullen said he wanted 90,000 fans in that stadium for the next game, and then they had to postpone for 2 weeks. Is that the biggest case of karma that's ever been doled out ever?
Well, I really wish he hadn't said that because it does make it seem even worse. You know, it won't be long before, unlike professional sports where they're adults and getting paid, and in this situation, it won't be long before people point out that these are still students, kids going to school, and that they are around lots of kids going to school every day. And they don't want to start spreading this virus anymore. And it does appear that it's going to be another resurgence of this virus. It's just going to come back and be just as bad again. So I'm with you. I'm really worried that they're going to start looking at this and realize that from what Dan said, even if they weren't actually going to do that, it's still the mentality in college football. We want to get together. We want to tailgate. We want to enjoy it. We want to go to games. And people are going to do that. These students are definitely going to do that, even if it's on their own. And I don't think it'll be long before you start hearing people really campaigning for shutting down sports for the moment to try and get over this. And that worries me a lot because I do not want to lose football.
Well, one positive that we can have is that doctors all across the country have gotten better at treating this. So it's less likely that you die, even like Bobby Bowden beat it at 90 years old last week. So it's happening, and we're getting better with doing it. There's better therapeutics out there and better treatments. Now, as far as on the field, Bama beat up on Georgia Saturday, and I just look at Alabama's offense, and I think that they might be better than LSU's last year. What's your thoughts, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I mean, it just they were opportunistic on defense. Bama was. I mean, Georgia helped them out with turning the ball over, helped them out with having a 5'11" quarterback who just couldn't seem to find the windows to throw through to get the ball down the field. Who also missed a bunch of. If you really go back and watch the game, you see a lot of missed opportunities for passes that were shorter, easier to complete. Things that probably don't get batted down if he's able to get through his progressions. I mean, Stetson really just had a rough day. He just wasn't, it was just one of those games where he just wasn't on. And, you feel bad for the kid, but that happens to every quarterback. I mean, even the greatest of all time has games where he throws 6 interceptions and has just an awful day. I saw 6'4" quarterbacks getting passes batted down. Ryan Tannehill got one batted down for the Titans. So it's just one of those things where Alabama played them great. Alabama's coaches are, they're elite for a reason. Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time for a reason because even when his defense is struggling, he finds ways to get them to perform and do things and be in the right positions. And what's even scarier is he did that via Zoom for 2 days. And I think that solidifies his GOAT status right there. I mean, they just played a great game. Sarkisian probably had the best game I've ever seen him coach. He was creating mismatches all over the field. He did a great job of getting Jaylen Waddle and Devontae Smith matched up on safeties. He did a great job of blitz pickup. He did a great job of seeing and knowing what Georgia was going to do and having an answer for it when they did it. And their offensive line, finally, their offensive line played outstanding. They were picking up blitzes. They were creating run lanes for Najee Harris. And Bama just had a great team win. They really had a nice bounce back on defense, and that was probably the biggest deal.
Yeah, I agree. Their defense really coming on in the second half, I think, is what blew that game open, and I was impressed by that. I do think Alabama, and I don't think they have the greatest offensive strategy. I still think places like Ole Miss are better at offense, but Bama just has so many good athletes, and I got to admit, they have them firing on all cylinders right now. It's just impressive that as much trouble as teams seem to be having this year, with the shortened season, with COVID, we've had a lot of excuses, but LSU, A&M, all these teams are just taking time pulling things together, where Alabama just came out of the gate just playing great, and they are still playing great. And you're right. I think Saturday they played much better on offense than I think even they are, and they're already great on offense. So, it was a great game for Alabama, and having their defense come together there in the second half, really, it was just too much. I don't think any team could have beat them that day.
And Corey, hot take alert for everybody here. The only way Georgia is going to compete for a national title is if JT Daniels takes over the job. And acts like the former 5-star that he was because they are so limited at the quarterback position. Now they might go 9-1 and play in the SEC championship game, but if you really want to win that national title, it's going to be up to the former 5-star.
Yeah, I mean, you may be right, but then again, they did enough in that game. Um, Aside from probably a handful of plays, they did enough in that game to really prove that they could hang with Bama. I think a couple of the deep shots. You got to fix that on the back end in your secondary. Some of the reads with the quarterback, you just got to settle him down, see what he can do. Obviously, this bye week you're going to see a lot, but I mean, Steve, if JT Daniels can't make it through practice without limping off the field and seeing the trainer and having confidence that he can move around in the pocket, yeah, he's medically cleared, but he's not football ready yet. And so I think it's going to take some time. And honestly, I don't think we're going to see him. And I think it's, if we're going to have a chance at the national title, Stetson's going to have to play way above his talent level, or we're just going to have to get creative in how we win. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we're not national championship contenders this year. Who knows? I think if we play more games like we played at most of the first half, Georgia will be just fine. If we're up and down, like we were against Arkansas, like we were, I guess, sort of against Tennessee, where the first half was bad. If we have these bad halves in games, you had a bad half against Arkansas. Arkansas has proven to be a great team now, and you go and blow them out in the second half. Auburn was a complete game. Tennessee, you struggle in the first half, then you take over and roll in the second half. Alabama is the exact opposite. You get off to a better start, but you fall apart in the second half. So at some point, Georgia's going to have to put together a complete game just to even see if we got a chance altogether.
Yeah, and probably the next time that's going to come up will be the Florida game. That'll be the next litmus test that you guys have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Because I think what's great about that, and a silver lining here in this loss, is that trying to defend Jaylen Waddle and Devontae Smith will get us prepared for Pitts and Kadarius Toney, and going against a quarterback that's dropping dimes this year in Mac Jones will get us ready for Kyle Trask. And so I think we'll have, and it'll be a little bit easier to defend the run against Florida because they're not as strong in the rushing attack as Alabama is. Their offensive line is not as good at picking up blitz, so maybe we can get home on a few of these blitzes and get more pressure on Trask than we did on Mac Jones, and maybe we can factor out Kadarius Toney and Pitts, and then of course Florida's defense, third and Grantham, is not quite as well coached as any Saban defense, even in Saban's worst years.
All right, and we go on to Arkansas start their 2-2, but they could easily be 3-1 if the SEC didn't mess up a call, because it was absolutely a backwards pass, and that's a fumble. How good of a job is Barry Odom doing right now?
Barry Odom is absolutely killing it. I mean, you can say what you want to about his tenure at Missouri, but my God, the guy knows defense, and the guy can. One of the things we can say about Missouri is that they were always physical, they always punched you in the mouth, they always played great stingy defense. They just could never mix it up and have a complete game there at Missouri. And he had some tough luck. I don't know if he was starting to turn it around, but as a head coach, maybe some of the responsibilities got away from him. But my God, man, he has figured out most of this conference right now, and he is just terrorizing every opponent. I mean, Georgia, they probably left that game, and they were all in the ice tubs and ice in their sore spots. Same with Mississippi State. I mean, they straight shut down an offense that put up almost 1,000 yards in one game. They just straight shut them down, and then they play against Auburn in what should have been a win. Was a extremely physical. I mean, they were so physical against Auburn that they caused Auburn to lose another game, and then you get to the Ole Miss game, and I haven't seen a team make an offense look so inept as I did with Arkansas making Ole Miss. Just Ole Miss was on the struggle bus, and they got hit in the mouth, and it just didn't seem like they could recover at all.
Yeah, honestly, it's the worst quarterback game in Ole Miss history. Matt Corral he was staring down receivers, and Arkansas was just reading his eyes and going straight and intercepting football. And the other reality in that game is the R in the RPO got taken out because he was willing to force the ball, and they threw a couple of pick sixes just based off stuff that if you just handed it to Jerry and Eagley, Ole Miss has the ball. But still, let's not forget that with 7 turnovers and 2 stops inside the 1-yard line, Ole Miss had the ball with 3 minutes to go in that game with a chance to go down and win it.
Yes, they did. And, a lot of that is just Felipe Franks just being Felipe Franks. And, the Arkansas offense wasn't exactly rolling a lot of the times. I mean, they got off to a great start, don't get me wrong. But there was times where they squandered chances and chances and chances, and they even had some pretty good field position at times, and it just didn't seem like they could really get out of their own way a little bit on offense. It just seemed like they were kind of discombobulated, and the defense really just kind of held them in it.
All right. That's the end of the first segment. We're going to take a little break here and stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Around the SEC, Stephen Willis along with Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham. We're going to get into this week's slate. We only have 4 games this weekend, guys. We're going to start out at 11 a.m. on the SEC Network. Jordan Rogers, Cole Kubick in the crew with Tom Hart, Auburn and Ole Miss. Auburn's a 3-point favorite. This is a game that I just don't think, after as bad as last week was for Ole Miss, they are definitely due. I'm going to take the Rebels. I'll tell you how much. And the line is a little bit later on, but I expect Matt Corral to just bounce back. Archie Manning threw 6 interceptions in 1968 against Tennessee. In 69, they have what is known as the Jackson Massacre, that Archie Manning bounced back and just let Ole Miss pass Tennessee and Jackson. I think something similar is going to happen. I think there's going to be a nice bounce back.
Yeah, I think so too. And it doesn't hurt that things are starting to really unravel in Auburn. I mean, if you watched that game, which I think, Jeb, you probably weren't because it was on at the same time as Tennessee, Kentucky. But I was flipping back and forth, and I stayed on the Auburn game a lot. There was several almost fistfights happening on Auburn's sideline. And Gus, I think, is lost complete control, or at least he lost complete control of his team that day. I don't know day to day, but you're starting to see the wheels fall off of that thing. You're starting to see the team kind of quit on Gus. I think the Gus bus is out of gas, and I think that Bo Nix is done. He's mentally checked out. He's regressing. It's getting worse by the week. Seth Williams won't even talk to him. I'm sure most of those guys are like, what's going on? Why can't and they don't have any other quarterbacks on the roster really because they ran off Gatewood to Kentucky, so it's not like they can turn to somebody else. So things are getting pretty bad in Auburn, and Kevin Steele's even starting to get discombobulated. So you factor that in to an Ole Miss team that struggled, but the wheels are still on the bus. I mean, they had they're a inexperienced team. They've first year in a system, no spring practice, weird fall camp. They're still trying to gel. They came out on fire against Alabama, and everybody has all these expectations. But we gotta be realistic about this thing. You knew this team was going to be up and down because you knew Lane Kiffin was a good coach, but you also at the same time you knew that Ole Miss was going to be up and down. They were going to have a great performance. They were going to have a bad performance, and on defense that they weren't going to really be able to stop much of a nosebleed because they really don't have any horses over there on that side of the ball. They will recruit their way out of it, because I think they're that talented as a staff, but you know that things are going to get better, that you're going to stabilize, things are getting more consistent. So for this, you want to see how this offense responds. They got punched in the teeth last week against Arkansas. They turned the ball over 7 times, and that's about as bad as you can get. So we're going to see how Matt Corral responds. Does he come out? Does he just move right through it, learn from his mistakes, and trust his reads? Does the playmakers get back on track, make plays? Jerry Healy, Elijah Moore, those guys, do they get back on track? Do they get back in sync? I think they will. A lot of reason because Auburn's falling apart. That's going to help them, and that's going to help them gain confidence for the stretch run of the season after the midpoint. So I like the Rebs in this. I think there's a lot to improve on, and I think this Ole Miss team has got a lot of potential, and I still believe in them. They just, again, they ran into a team very similar to them in Arkansas, who's also building up that momentum and confidence.
Yeah, I really can't argue with any of that. I think you're both right. I think Ole Miss is going to have a bounce back week. I think Auburn's defense has been pretty good, but they haven't faced an offense like Ole Miss yet, and I think that Matt Corral will have a bounce back week, and they'll really, really put up some points against Auburn. And then Corey, I think you're right that while Ole Miss's defense isn't great, Auburn just seems to be regressing right now on offense, and I don't see it getting better this week. He may look a little better just because of the defense he's playing, but I don't think they'll put up enough points to outscore Ole Miss.
I mean, if you look at South Carolina, their defense isn't that great, and I know Auburn had a chance to win it there late in the game, but it was a struggle just to get there. And South Carolina is in a similar boat to Ole Miss. No great defense. They control the clock a little bit better than Ole Miss does. They control the ball, but that's just a difference in philosophy, really.
Yeah. Kentucky versus Mizzou, 3:00 SEC Network. That'll actually conclude the SEC Network for the day since there's only 4 games. Those 2 plus the CBS game plus an ESPN game tomorrow night, and that'll be your SEC lineup. I really like Kentucky's running game, and if Terry Wilson can be just average in the passing attack, they look really good.
Yeah, this is the one of the ultimate. I know it's a 5.5 point spread, so I think Vegas has a little bit more of a hunch than I do. But this game kind of to me stands out as I still have no clue what either of these teams have. Missouri finally got in the win column against LSU. Eli Drinkowitz, congratulations on your first win. But Kentucky just I still don't know defensively. I mean, they had a great day against Tennessee, but how much of that was Guarantano being bad? How much of that was, Mark Stoops finally getting those guys together and playing a complete game on defense? Missouri, a scary passing attack, which, something I didn't know that they had until they unleashed it on LSU and just scored a barrage of points. So, you have to, before that LSU game, I would have probably said Kentucky's going to run away with this. That 5.5 point spread is nowhere near enough. It would probably be closer to 8, 9, or 10 had Missouri not putting up that barrage of points. But I just think it's one of those matchups that's kind of tricky here because Kentucky, their weak part on defense is stopping the passing game, and Missouri has that's one of their strong suits or one of their emerging strong suits. So I think I'm I'm going to think about this. I have Kentucky slated in as my pick right now, but I might talk myself into Missouri. I'm not sure yet. Maybe it's not enough points. I think Kentucky defensively is great against the run, so if they can make Missouri one-dimensional, maybe that helps them. If Terry Wilson can contribute in the passing game, that certainly will help them offensively. And if they can score a barrage of points, maybe they suffocate Missouri enough to where they can't go into shootout mode like they did against LSU. So a very interesting game. I'm very intrigued by this one. And I think it's a very even matchup, talent-wise, skill set-wise. It's a very even matchup. I think Kentucky's more experienced, and I think that will probably be the biggest factor in this game is the experience that Kentucky has versus Missouri, who's got a new staff, probably a lot of new starters. Not a lot of continuity coming out of last year, whereas Kentucky has a lot of continuity coming out of last year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure what to expect in this either because it depends on if they play like they played last week or if they play like they did the week before. And I think Kentucky has an advantage here with being very good at controlling the tempo of games. I think they're offensively they're going to be able to eat up a lot of the clock, take a lot of the time, and then also on defense they can stop the run pretty well. But like you said, their weakness seems to be the stopping the pass. And Missouri, at least last week, found that they could pass the ball really well. And honestly, the week before when they were playing Tennessee, they had a bad game, or 2 weeks before, sorry, when they were playing Tennessee, they had a bad game, but it really looked like they were on the verge almost every drive of just hitting something big and getting it going, and they just never did. So that's interesting to see if they finally did get that with LSU. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they can continue that momentum or if Kentucky just chews up enough clock and keeps them off the field long enough to win this game.
Yes, and South Carolina versus LSU in Tiger Stadium. Miles Brennan might not play this game. He's kind of doubtful at this point. Kevin Harris, I believe that's his name, Kevin Harris. Yes, the running back for South Carolina is playing quite well. And, South Carolina is just you look at it, it's like they're an okay team. They're not really good. They're not really bad. They're just okay. And I'm not sure LSU is not the 13th best team in the Southeastern Conference.
Ooh, that's a bit of a stretch because you're sitting there with Vandy and Mississippi State as 14-13, and I know Mississippi State beat LSU, but I think if they reran that matchup, I think LSU would be on the better end of that matchup. So I consider LSU just because they're actually competent right now is better than Mississippi State, and maybe even better than Missouri. I think.
Wait. How can LSU be considered better than Missouri when they just lost to Missouri?
They
lost to Mississippi State. Yeah,
I know. It's a weird logic, but I think any team can knock off any team in a once-off deal. They were better that day. I don't know. They continue to be favorites, which I don't get that. But maybe they're not better than Missouri. Maybe they're right there with Missouri. It was an evenly matched game, so maybe they're right there with each other. But I think this team, South Carolina, is bringing to the table. They have a great running game. Defensively, they're slowly starting to figure some things out. They don't have a whole lot of name brand players on defense, but they do play well together. And Will Muschamp, is always – it's always a strong suit of his. He's always going to have a pretty good defense. But offensively, I think they're finally starting to figure some things out too. Mike Bobo is proving to be a great hire for Will Muschamp because I think they figured a lot of things out quickly, whereas in years past, and when I say years past, I mean like the last couple of years, they haven't been able to figure those things out, and they've lost a whole bunch of games and got themselves out of contention early. Colin Hill is proving to be the right choice at the quarterback spot. Shi Smith was on the segment "You Got Mossed" for mossing somebody last week against Auburn, and he was one of the ones we actually did know about. So they're playing really good football right now. South Carolina is. I've got them slated in my picks because I think if they, I think they have a really good shot of winning this thing outright if they don't cover. If they don't, I think they'll still cover the spread. I think it'll be a close loss if they don't win. outright. So either way, I'm picking them in the points. But just there's just a lot to like about South Carolina with LSU. I mean, they score in bunches, and they even though they lost in a shootout to Missouri, and they gave up a boatload of yards against Mississippi State. They did against Missouri. Defensively, they couldn't stop a nosebleed. Bo Pelini's kind of a joke, kind of a punchline. But offensively, I mean, they still had the firepower. They were still able to hang with Missouri for as long as they could, and then they just lost it there at the end. I think it was 48-45. I think was the final, Steve.
Yeah.
That was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a goal line stand at the end against Missouri.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I didn't watch that game. I just saw the scores going by. I think Georgia was playing Tennessee at that point, so I didn't really get a chance to watch that game very, very closely. So I just kept up with it from a distance.
Yeah, but Corey, I agree with you. LSU is one of those teams that, even though they keep losing, and you want to say, well, they're bad, they've got so much talent. It's just hard to say, oh, this is a bad team, because it seems like a team that at any minute could just explode and beat anyone.
I like
outside of maybe Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah, I like them to A&M. A&M's a talented team that was playing like complete garbage for a little bit, and then they've found some answers. LSU is a very talented team. They're just playing like garbage. Mississippi State's not a talented team. Missouri still is not a talented team. Missouri's playing above their head. Arkansas is playing way above their head. If you look at rosters and talent and things like that, they're playing well above their heads. So talent-wise, they're built very well, LSU is. Coaching-wise, that's where the disadvantage is, I think.
Yes, and that will close out that segment. A preview of Tennessee and Alabama coming up next. Stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Around the SEC, Stephen Willis alongside Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham. We're going to talk a little bit about Alabama Crimson Tide versus Tennessee coming up this weekend, your CBS game. And a couple of weeks ago, Tennessee had the longest winning streak in the conference, and they hit a little bit of a skid. I really like Alabama's offense. I actually really like Tennessee's defense, but they're not quite Georgia's defense. So I just think Alabama could walk with this one.
Yeah, I don't care what defense you're playing against. If you're Alabama, they're just loaded, man. And they're extremely well coached. I mean, the schemes, the play designs, things like that. I mean, I think you could go out there with that group and win with basic schemes. But the fact that Steve Sarkisian is just creating mismatches all over the place, and they've got, outside of Clemson, who I can't believe how badly they beat Georgia Tech. That's a different story for a different day. But they're probably sitting right there with Clemson as far as the number of explosive plays. I mean, I just feel like every time I watch Alabama, you see at least 3 balls that go for 70 plus and a touchdown. I mean, Jaylen Waddle is the deep ball king. Devontae Smith catches everything. Catches some of the strongest hands I've ever seen. I mean, Devontae Smith is one of those receivers that, I mean, he might be better as a receiver. I'm not saying physical talent. I'm saying as a receiver playing the position of wide receiver than Henry Ruggs. Because I think he's, Henry Ruggs for the speed and the leaping ability and all that stuff. I think Devontae Smith is more of a polished receiver than Henry Ruggs. And we know what happened to Henry Ruggs. Jerry Jeudy is he's in a different category. Jerry Judy's got Jaylen Waddle speed and, Devontae Smith skill, and he's just a beast. But, what's not to like about this Alabama offense? They have a great offensive line. They have Najee Harris, who was a former, top 3 player in the country when he was coming out of high school. Looks like Derrick Henry, even down to the dreads. I feel like coming out of the back of his helmet. This Alabama offense is just extremely scary.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you, Steve, too. I like Tennessee's defense. At least I like what they're building there. They have a lot of good pieces that have come in. Henry To'oTo'o, of course, is great. Alontae Taylor in the backfield. They've got several good players, actually, that I really like on their defense, but they haven't built a great defense yet. They're just working toward it. They're still in, unfortunately, rebuild mode, which I know everybody hates hearing. So while I think they play good games and they play good at times, Alabama has so much offensive firepower at so many different positions. There's no way they can cover all that. And just with all the different receivers, with Najee Harris at running back, they're not going to be able to stop Alabama very much at all. Of course, we saw it with Georgia. Now, Georgia, there was a lot of mistakes being made, but it doesn't matter. They just don't have enough yet on defense to be able to stop high-powered offenses, and Alabama is as high-powered as it gets in the SEC right now.
I mean, Jeb, do Tennessee fans realize just how bad the team was when Jeremy Pruitt took over? I mean, do they realize how god-awful that roster was?
It's confusing because, and yes, a lot of them do, and I'm on the message boards a lot, and you can tell the people who were really paying attention and the people who were just watching games occasionally. But after Derek Dooley, the roster was just obviously terrible. When Coach Jones, when Bush Jones came in, he did recruit talent. He could coach them, and I don't know. Maybe he wasn't recruiting talent to fit his system. I don't know what it was. If he just cared more about stars than actual character or whatever. But he was bringing in good players, so people expected us to get better, and it just wasn't happening at all. I think Pruitt has had to come in and just really revamp everything. And I think he's doing a great job of it. I really like what Pruitt's doing much more than I did Butch Jones. I'm not saying that he's going to be a great coach. I'm just saying I think he's doing it the right way right now. But it's definitely it's a multi-year process. It's just Tennessee fans are tired of hearing that, and I understand because we've heard that now for the last 3 coaches. But
yeah, I mean, you come off of Fulmer, who brought a lot of great tradition, and then Johnny Majors and General Neyland before that. So a lot of rich tradition in Tennessee football, and I definitely understand it. So, Jeb, I'm gonna ask you another question about the quarterback situation. With the struggles they have at that position, what you have in Jared Guarantano. He's a guy that's prone to having games like he did against Kentucky. I get that he was a 5-star. I get that he came back in the bowl game against Indiana, and I get that he brings a lot of experience to the table. But to me, and now the Justin Fields situation is starting to make sense because Jim Chaney was the offensive coordinator for Georgia at the time. Now I'm seeing the situation unfold on a different roster. I find it even more unacceptable now that I'm seeing it in another scenario. Maybe it wasn't necessarily all Justin Fields and Jake Fromm and all that stuff. How is it that Harrison Bailey is not more ready to come in? The kid was was he a 5-star? I think he was.
yes. Yeah,
If he wasn't, he was a really high 4-star. He was extremely.
It depends on which recruiting service you were looking at, I think. But
yeah, either way, he's very highly ranked. One of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country coming in, and I think it's unacceptable to not have him ready. I know he's young. I know you hate to throw a freshman in there. I get all of that. But you get a free year where expectations are not that high. How can you not learn that? Jake Fromm came in as a freshman, learned that offense. Didn't really improve year to year. And I feel like he even took a step backwards as he went through his progression. But I think at least as a freshman, you have two good running backs that you can lean on. Why not throw Harrison Bailey out there? I keep saying that, but at this point, why not? I mean, can it get much worse than Guarantano? I mean,
I'll be honest, it's a little confusing as a fan because I know,
Stroud ain't got it.
And Coach Pruitt won't tell you what's going on. But my guess is what he would say is, well, because of COVID and everything, he didn't have a chance to practice. We weren't able to get him ready before the start of the season, and I get that. But
no, I don't buy that. You're getting paid $6 million a year, or however much he's getting paid. You figure that out. Your coordinator's getting paid $1.6 million. You figure out how to get him ready. You get him ready.
I agree with you. And if the team was winning and everything, of course, you wouldn't be thinking about putting him in anyway. So it's not like there's a better situation that I can think of where he should go in because, like you said, we have good running backs. We actually have a good offensive line. It's not like he's going to take lots of sacks. He's in a better situation than Josh Dobbs was when we threw him in for the first time against Alabama, and he got beat up, just was running around in circles. I felt bad for him in that game, but he turned out to be pretty good too. So I agree. I think at this point it really can't hurt unless you're just dead set against burning his red shirt. I don't understand why
you get a free year though.
Yeah, there's no red shirt this year.
Yeah,
in that case, there's no excuse. You're right.
Yeah, I get that logic, but in a regular year, yeah, maybe you got a point, but you can't. You're not burning anything.
Also,
blame that man.
All right, I got a question for both of y'all, and this is I want y'all to go back to y'all's childhood.
False.
Is Jaylen Waddle
Surge?
Is Jaylen Waddle more Peter Warrick or Jacquez Green?
Ooh. I'm going to say Jacquez Green. I think if I remember Jacquez Green correctly, he had more of the straight line speed, and Waddle has a lot of the straight line. Just the smooth gliding speed.
Yeah. Okay.
Where he doesn't make a whole lot. He doesn't make not that he can't, but that's just not his game. Where he makes like the shifty cuts, like the jagged cut on a dimes type cuts. I think Devontae Smith is kind of more like your Peter Warrick.
Okay.
Where, Peter Warrick had a big catch radius. I think that their games are very similar. Devontae Smith is very kind of quick-footed. I think Devontae Smith can make a lot of sudden cuts that Peter Warrick made. And I think Jacquez Green and Jaylen Waddle are more of those, easy gliders that just seem like they're just not really moving at all, but really they're moving at a much faster pace than anyone in the world.
All right, Jeb.
This is going to sound weird with Green having played at Florida and Peter Warrick at Florida State. But for some reason, I remember Peter Warrick a lot better than I do Jacquez Green. And I don't know, he does remind me of him quite a bit. At least is how they play the game. I could see that comparison. Green, I'm trying to think. I remember him being really good. I just can't remember off the top of my head exactly what his game looked like, just out of the blue trying to think of it.
He's one of the first wide receivers that Steve Spurrier had that he played in the slot, which means he was part of the high-low game that Steve Spurrier just did to every team in the SEC to about 45 points a game. It was amazing.
Spurrier is the smash wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played back during the era where we had Peyton Manning out there, didn't he?
Yeah, that was the same time. I remember.
Late 90s,
I remember Jacquez Green. I think it was 97, maybe the year after they won their national championship, and Ike Hilliard and Riedel Anthony had moved on, and it was really just like Jacquez Green was the elder statesman in the wide receiver room, and he personally, and the game was in the Swamp that year. Personally, I felt. It just felt this way. I don't know. I was still in middle school, so I don't really remember it the way I probably should, because as a middle schooler, my attention span was that of a goldfish. But to me, what stands out is I felt like he took over the game, and he personally beat Florida State that day. and that's when I started. I was like, man, Jacquez Green became my least favorite college football player because of that reason. I grew up a Florida State fan, just so you know. And so I watched plenty of FSU football, and Jacquez Green became enemy number one, and that was surprising because Danny Warfel had been enemy number one before that.
All right, around the SEC. When we come back, picks.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Welcome back. It's picks time. Every week we go over the games in the SEC and pick them against the spread. Last week I went 2-3 with a 15-11 record overall. Jeb went 2-3 with a 12-14 record overall. Corey went 2-3 with 11-15 record overall, and Becky
I'm gaining on you fools.
Yeah, Becky went 1-4 and is 14-12 overall, and she just learned about point spreads right before the football season, so I don't know how we should take that.
It's always the person in like the March Madness tournament who like picks based on like their favorite mascot. So
yeah,
Color of the
that's
team.
that's always the person you're like, really, you're winning. I spent 6 hours trying to make my picks and watching all the bracketology segments and yeah.
All right, Auburn is favored by 3 points over Ole Miss, 11 a.m. Saturday, SEC Network. Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, Cole Kubelik, and the gang. I am taking Ole Miss. I think Matt Corral is going to bounce back, but the Rebels in Oxford.
Yeah, I think we talked about this and are pretty much in agreement that Ole Miss, I think their offense will overpower Auburn's defense, and I don't see Auburn's offense doing the same thing. So I'm taking Ole Miss.
Yeah, I made the mistake of picking Ole Miss last week. I'm going to do it again this week. I'm going to make that mistake, except for the fact it's not going to be a mistake. I think if Auburn has any shot of winning, I think Ole Miss is still going to cover, even in worst case scenario. So I'm taking the Rebs and the points, even though they won't need them because they'll win outright.
All right, Alabama giving away 21 points to Tennessee in Knoxville, 2:30 CBS game. Right here, Alabama, Crimson Tide. I'm just going to lay the points and just ride the Tide at this point.
Unfortunately, I have to completely agree. I hate picking against Tennessee with that kind of point spread, but Alabama is they're just rolling, and Tennessee is just falling apart. So I'm going with Alabama as well.
Yeah, one of the things you can't have against Alabama, even when their defense is at its worst, is poor quarterback play. Tennessee has just that. They're one-dimensional, which it might as well be blood in the water for Alabama. I'm going to take Alabama in the points, and I'm probably going to take Alabama against the spread until I can't take them against the spread.
Yes, Kentucky giving away 5.5 points to Missouri. I believe that's the 3:00 game on SEC Network. I'm taking the Wildcats. They have a good football team.
I agree. I think Kentucky is better right now than Missouri just all around. I know they each have their weaknesses and their strengths, but I think Kentucky is a more solid football team, so I see them winning that by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, I think Kentucky is a very well-constructed team that was playing and struggling at the beginning of the season. They weren't playing their best football. I think they finally kind of got some things sorted out and really kind of starting to come together a little bit. I hate that they have Georgia next week, as they're starting to heat up. So, I think experience plays a big factor in this game as well. I think Kentucky's just more experienced team in this conference right now than Missouri is under new coach Eli Drinkwitz. Great win against LSU, but I hate to say it, Kentucky is just a better squad. I'm taking the Cats by 7.
South Carolina getting 6 points from LSU in Tiger Stadium. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks. Until LSU is good enough to beat somebody, they're going to have to prove it.
Yeah, you're definitely right. LSU is, like I said earlier, the team that you just feel like has the talent to break it out anyway, but they have not so far. And South Carolina, I mean, they're playing better than I would have expected, so I'm going to go with that as well.
Yeah, LSU is just such a weird team. Probably the reason why I had such a weird take, because it just, to me, they should be a lot better than they are. They should have never gotten a shootout with Missouri. They should not have let up 10,000 yards against Mississippi State. They should have crushed Vandy, and they did. But they're just such a weird team. And the fact that they're still favored, having such a random, weird offseason, even for their standards, is astonishing to me. I think South Carolina is a team whose arrow is trending up. LSU is a team whose arrow is trending down. They can score some points, and they can score them in bunches. But your team's not really all that together. Your defense is a joke. You have 2 highly combustible coaches on the same staff. I know, Steve, you could probably spend an hour just talking Coach O stories. And I think this is one of those seasons where LSU is going to just have to coach their way out of their struggles. And I'm not sure after losing Joe Brady that they're capable of doing that. So I'm going to take the Cox +6. I'm going to take South Carolina in the points. Even if they don't win, I still think it'll be a tight ball game, and I still think South Carolina will cover.
And Becky is taking Ole Miss, Tennessee, Kentucky, and South Carolina. She's the brave person that took Tennessee, but I'm not going to. She beat us
again this week.
Yeah, I'm not going to judge it because she usually is correct. But that is around the SEC this week. For Corey and Jeb, I'm Steve Willis. We'll see you next week.